Hello, I'm Micah Evans. Originally from Washington State, started blowing glass in Seattle back in the late 90s, and kind of took me all over the country to Florida, to currently Austin, Texas. I took a class from a woman named Carmen Lazar, who is has a very strong narrative body of work, and it was one of those things that she unlocked a world for me in about 5 minutes. With glass, it's so technique heavy. You can spend so much time collecting technique, and enough time. I'd spent enough time doing that. I kind of lost the ability to translate my ideas with that technique. I was putting too much emphasis on it. Anyway, I was telling her some stories, and she immediately interrupted me to say, "You need to make some work about this." And that's when the starlings first came about. And I grew up in apple orchards in Washington State, apples, cherries, and pears, and my best friend at the time's father had this cherry tree out back that the starlings would flock in and eat the cherries, and it happened one year, and the next year he was so irritated by it, he paid us $0.25 a starling to shoot these birds out of this cherry tree. And so I made a piece about that, which was a little starling sculpture that hollow that I filled with copper BBs, sandblasted it, and I had its claw was clutching a quarter, and it was a great, it was a great little reference to that story. But it was the first time I kind of nailed this recipe of just enough information to pique people's interest, but not so much that I tell them what to think. And so what I witnessed were so many people, even with me there, loving these sculptures and then telling me the story behind it without asking me. And it wasn't always this story that and actually never was the story that I had, but they had their own meaning to it, and it was consistent. It was one after the other, people that identified with whatever this little recipe that I stumbled on. And so it's this object I've made over the years because they're fun to make, and it references a time in my life that's it's a very romantic childhood memory. And there are these pieces I don't necessarily sell that often. I've made about 100 of them and probably only sold a dozen, but I tend to give them away as gifts to friends, or to people that don't understand that I don't know, they're almost too special to sell. Also, it's like one of those things that if I forget to buy Christmas presents, everybody gets a dead bird, and which is always a fun one.